The 2025 NASCAR Cup Series finale at Phoenix Raceway is the second most disappointed I've ever been watching a motorsport race. Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome back to another Matt's Motorsport Rambles, where today, as you will have guessed by the intro, we are talking about yesterday's controversy at the NASCAR Cup Series finale. What went wrong? Why it was so disappointing, why pretty much everybody seems to have been upset by it, and what can NASCAR do to try and fix this situation. Now, first and foremost, don't ask why I suddenly turned up as like the world's biggest Alpine fan, I don't really know either, it's just what I put on this morning. I'm not a huge Alpine fan or anything like that, but it's not really by the point, of course. Today we are discussing NASCAR and American motorsport. Now, some of you might not know this, but I'm actually quite the big NASCAR fan. I actually really enjoy it. Now, I know as someone that is European, that probably immediately raises some alarm bells, but I really find the history of the sport quite interesting. I find it as a great case study for all the wrong reasons in modern times as to where Formula 1 might be heading as well. And it's safe to say that, yeah, yesterday's finale from Phoenix was the culmination of literal decades of bad choices within NASCAR and the France family, and obviously all the organisation that obviously sorts out NASCAR. So, for those of you that maybe don't know, the way NASCAR works is it has a playoff format, which has been slated to no ends on the internet. You know, I'm not going to be the first person to be saying any of this, but basically, after the first 26 races, the top 16 drivers are picked. There is a bit of a system for it, but pretty simply, they do 3 races, the bottom 4 drivers are dropped. They do another 3 races, the bottom 4 drivers are dropped. They do another 3 races, and you guessed it, the bottom 4 drivers are dropped, leaving you with 1 race and 4 drivers that are basically in a must-win scenario against each other. Now, the system's had its quirks, it's had its highlights, it's had its lowlights. For the most part, though, the general consensus is, for a motorsport series, it's not the right way to be awarding a champion. I mean, we literally saw this on Saturday night in the Xfinity series. It almost happened in the Truck series as well on Friday night. Corey Heim in the Truck series absolutely dominated this year. A record-breaking campaign. Could have come into this final race. You know, if they ran a normal point system, he would have wrapped it up like 2-3 weeks ago, if I remember correctly. Luckily, he did win the Truck Series Championship on Friday. Connor Zilic, of course, arguably one of the greatest up-and-coming talents of motorsport right now. Again, ran what was close to a record-breaking Xfinity campaign, which is like NASCAR's version of Formula 2 for you Europeans out there. 10 wins on the year, most top 5s, most top 10s, most top 15s, highest average finish position, pretty much every stat on the book. Connor Zilic had wiped the floor with everybody, and then he got beaten in the final race of the campaign, because that was always going to happen when you've got a format as bad as this. Now, obviously, the Cup Series, you know, already tensions were quite high heading into this weekend. You could make the argument, unlike Truck and Xfinity, that all 4 drivers that were in the Cup Series finale absolutely deserve to be there. Absolutely, you know, if any of them won, they probably deserved to, depending on how they won it, which I think is where the bigger issue lies. Now, there was already a bit of drama coming into the weekend. Phoenix is a very odd track in NASCAR. It's got what's lovingly called a dog leg. Now, I don't actually know why it's called a dog leg, so if anybody could fill me in with that down in the description below, it would be greatly appreciated. But basically, it means that obviously on most ovals, you stick on the banking. Phoenix, you can actually go below the banking on a flatter, shorter run that isn't really much quicker normally, but can help out. But just through years of wear and tear, there was some really big lacerations through the tarmac and kind of big, basically cuts and grooves into the tarmac that they couldn't resurface before this weekend's race. And that meant pretty much immediately the dogleg was out of use for the most part, unless you really wanted to risk it. But it also meant that tyre wear and random spontaneous punctures were going to be a big issue. Now, in the Cup Series, fun fact actually, if they ran the old Winston Cup format, which I would be a big advocate for, Christopher Bell, I believe, would have wrapped it up just by starting this race. He had a big enough points cushion where even if he finished last, he was going to win the championship. He wasn't even in the championship for this year. Again, goes to show just how fatally flawed the NASCAR system is. But the championship four were Kyle Larson, who I believe hadn't won a race since May, way earlier on in the year, had barely squeaked into the Championship 4, just through sheer consistency. Not that he was slow and, it wasn't like a Joey Logano last year. But Kyle Larson, even I should say, William Byron, 2 Hendrick drivers, Chase Briscoe was the third, obviously with Joe Gibbs Racing, and then his teammate Denny Hamlin. So it was 2 Hendricks versus 2 JGR cars for this season finale. No Fords, no Penske's, because, let's be fair, if a Penske was there, they probably would have won. And fun fact, Ryan Blaney did win. Not that anybody noticed or cared come the end of the race, and, well, that is another problem we will talk about in just a moment. Now, fairly early on in the race, it kind of seemed like the battle was going to be between Denny Hamlin and William Byron. Denny started on the pole. Byron was his closest competitor throughout a lot of the race. Chase Briscoe also did look very, very competitive. And Kyle Larson was kind of there is like the best way I think any of us can describe it. Even by his own admission, the car wasn't that great in Phoenix. It's not one of his best tracks either, I don't believe. So he was kind of just sticking around, floating just inside the top 20 for a huge part of the night. Now, basically, you get into about the final, just about 100 laps to go. Kyle Larson and Chase Briscoe, pretty much within a couple of laps of each other, both suffer tyre failures. Both luckily avoid doing any major damage to their cars, but they obviously both have to peel into the pit lane. That brings out a caution, and obviously a bit like a safety car in Formula 1. It's exactly the same as a safety car in Formula 1. Bunches up the field back altogether again. Kyle Larson was able to get his lap back because of this as well, so he was actually a lap down prior to this, so was able to get back onto the lead lap. Things run pretty smoothly again. Denny Hamlin, William Byron still battling up towards the front. Byron clearly is starting to struggle late on in the day. And then with 30 laps to go, we get another caution. I believe, again, Chase Briscoe suffered another tyre failure late on in the day. So, whatever you look at, in fact, if anything, Goodyear were probably quite lucky in this race. That probably wasn't the biggest talking point, how many tyre failures they had. So, 30 laps to go. It's another reset. Denny Hamlin, off the restart, storms into a lead and just starts pulling away from everybody else. 25 laps to go, he's got about a second margin. 20 laps to go, he's up to almost 2 seconds margin. 10 laps to go, he's up to a 3-second margin at the front of the order, which on a 28-second lap is not huge by any stretch, but obviously very, very useful. And then 3 laps to go. William Byron running, I believe, in 3rd place at this point, battling it with Joey Logano. Tyre failure. Now, again, you think, well, that's not an issue. Safety car will come out and the race will finish under caution. No. That's not the way NASCAR works. So, in NASCAR, you have to finish under green, or you have to be able to get onto the last lap with the green flag still running. So, caution comes out, everybody gets bunched back together, and it becomes a battle on pit road. Denny Hamlin, hindsight is a beautiful thing, wrongly opts for 4 tyres. Kyle Larson opts for 2 to try and bring himself up towards the front, and then he's basically just praying for carnage around him, or that Denny loses enough spots that he's going to be able to stay ahead. So I believe Kyle Larson on the restart was the outside of row 3. Denny Hamlin was on the inside of row 5, a little bit further back. Byron and Briscoe are completely, sensibly out of contention at this point, and with 2 laps to go, from a dominant lead a handful of minutes beforehand, Kyle Larson wins it. Denny Hamlin cannot get back to him in the final couple of laps. Now, that in of itself, you think, it's a great strategy call by Kyle Larson, by his crew chief, by the Hendrick team, to allow him, obviously, that scenario to basically, out of nowhere, win this race. But just the bizarre nature, everything that's going on around NASCAR at the moment, that they don't want to have this one championship deciding race anymore. After Joey Logano last year probably won a championship, he never really had a right mind in doing so. And their whole spiel for so many years has always been that, it's about delivering in the moment. that doesn't really work in motorsport all too well, especially when there's 39 other guys trying to stop you delivering in the moment. It's not like, football here in the UK or American football or anything like that where it's one team against one team. It is 39 people effectively against one. You're all going up against each other in the grand scheme of things. And it just kind of was the culmination. I think if Corey Haim hadn't won the truck race on Friday, it would arguably go down as one of the worst days or worst weekends in NASCAR's kind of modern history of the last 10, 15 years or so. Now, like I said in the intro, it's the second most disappointed I have been watching a motorsport event. It only slots in behind Abu Dhabi 2021. Now, for those of you guys that know, I'm a huge Lewis Hamilton fan. I always have been since he came to the sport all those years ago. But I'm also a huge Denny Hamlin fan. And I genuinely, after he locked himself in at Vegas, spent the last 2 weeks trying to make sure that I understood in of myself, it's Denny Hamlin going into a championship decider. He's going to get screwed over. And with 3 laps to go, I finally had within myself accepted that this might actually happen. Denny Hamlin might genuinely be about to win this thing. Of course, I never should have believed that. It never should have happened, but it just goes to show that how bizarre the NASCAR format is. That, to be fair to Chase Briscoe, he's obviously gutted for his teammate that he didn't win the championship. Obviously Chase would have rather he won it, of course. But if he had to choose the second person to win the title, it was obviously going to be his teammate, Denny Hamlin. You've got William Byron after the race apologising to Denny as well for the tyre blowout that, of course, isn't even William Byron's fault. That's Goodyear's problem. And Kyle Larson, who's also there, going, I had a terrible car all day. I didn't drive that well. I probably didn't deserve to win this. Now, there is a bit of solace for Larson. He was very, very consistent over the course of the year. That if there was no playoff format, but they ran the modern NASCAR point system, he would have been champion anyway. But again, if you went back to the Winston points format, it would have been Christopher Bell that absolutely walked away with the championship over the course of the year. But I think, obviously, it's kind of like the best comparison I can give is with Abu Dhabi 2021 of why these events are so similar but also so different at the same time. Denny winning the Cup Series would have been a landmark moment, would have been a huge storyline. He is the most successful NASCAR driver never to win the championship. He's got 3 Daytona 500s to his name. He's got 60 Cup Series wins. It looked like it was going to be 61 come the end of last night. It is basically the modern equivalent of Dale Earnhardt versus Daytona in the sport of, this guy has done everything possible. Obviously, Dale had won 7 Cup Series championships, but, finally won Daytona. And Denny was obviously the opposite of that. He's got 3 Daytonas, but I'm sure he'd quite happily trade one of those to win at the Cup Series as well, because the amount of times Denny Hamlin has come so close and yet still never won it through so many random things happening, whether it's Ross Chastain with a wall ride back in 2022 or 2023, I can't remember off the top of my head exactly. I think it was 23, wasn't it? Through, the tape incident he got back, I think it was in 2011, to almost winning it in his debut season back in 2006 would have been absolutely insane as well. Everybody that was either a neutral or their driver wasn't in the championship for wanted to see Denny Hamlin win this race. And I think, honestly, even the Byron, Larson or Chase Briscoe fans, if it wasn't going to be their driver, they wanted to see Denny Hamlin win it as well. And motorsport is a cruel, unpredictable thing, but Abu Dhabi 2021, obviously, everybody knows now, it was a clear breach of the rules. There's a rule book in place, and they bent those rules to try and get them into their own ends. They wanted that last lap decider, which never should have really happened. NASCAR is kind of the opposite of that, of it's got all these rules in place to make sure you get that last lap decider, but it probably just ends up coming off just as badly. And it goes to show that NASCAR wants, obviously, these playoff formats, these Game 7 moments in the sport, but nobody cares. Nobody values a championship anymore. I think it was Kevin Harvick, wasn't it, years ago, said, these aren't like the titles that Earnhardt and Petty used to win all those years ago. the playoff format for the drivers means next to nothing because one moment of bad luck for someone else can completely squander your chances as a driver, as a team. And I mean, depending on what they change the format to next year, apparently we could be heading to a three race, 4 race championship round as such, and it's basically whoever delivers the best over those 4 events will claim the championship. But NASCAR has gone down such a dark path in recent years of nobody cares anymore, and that's the worst possible thing for your sport. Nobody cares who actually wins it. A lot of people are going, Denny Hamlin deserved to win this championship, should have won this championship, and was going to win this championship. Kyle Larson, I'm sure, obviously very, very happy that he's won the championship, and it will go down in the record books. But I think if they ever go back to a full season format, there will be a series of asterisks alongside all of these chase for the cup or playoff style champions. The chase for the cup format wasn't as bad, but it was still rather odd at the end of the day. And you combine that with, I don't mind stage racing too much. I can kind of understand why they want to do stage racing to try and keep interest up, because again, in Formula 1, the amount of Grand Prix where who's won by the end of lap 1 is often a lot higher than you ever see in NASCAR. But green, white, checkered rules, stage racing, this championship format, it all basically culminates to, even as a European, I can tell that it's just not popular in America. And I understand that not that many people here in the UK watch NASCAR. I can't watch that many races live because they're often on at like 1 in the morning and things like that, and I value my sleep. But I made sure to stay up for that finale last night. As soon as they crossed the line, I mean, nobody even noticed that Ryan Blaney won. Even my mate Eugene, who is the biggest Ryan Blaney fan I know in the entire world, didn't even realise that Blaney won it on the run to the line. That goes to show just how when you try and change the format so badly that nobody even cares about the races, never mind the bigger picture anymore. And whether NASCAR will finally fix this or not, only they know, to be honest, because they are continuing to shoot themselves in the foot. I genuinely think the on-track product NASCAR has got now is fantastic. And it's that horrible thing of, we see so many new winners and so many different winners each and every year now. Why do we need a convoluted playoff format? If the cars are so equal and the teams are so equal because they can't, most of the cars, they're basically just the same car up and down the entire field, obviously with setup tweaks. If the cars are so even, why doesn't a full championship year work? Obviously, if someone wraps it up like Christopher Bell did this year, he'd be a 2-time back-to-back champion now. I think the last time we saw that was Jimmy Johnson back in 2009-10, if I remember correctly. You have got to, if even your drivers don't see the value in a championship anymore, how long can NASCAR keep going on with it in the way it is? Now, of course, it's all well and good going, I'm not going to watch NASCAR anymore. I'm going to kind of talk with my wallet almost effectively, or with my time. But like I said, I do genuinely think the on-track spectacle is fantastic. And if you follow, I think it's like the NASCAR Classic Twitter account or something, they tweet out the Winston Cup points every week. That often normally ratios the actual NASCAR point system. The people yearn for the old Winston Cup style points, or even the modern point system without playoff and stage points and all this other stuff that even a die-hard NASCAR fan struggles to keep up with a lot of the time nowadays. They have chased themselves around for over 20 years, and combined with Connor Zilic on Saturday night and Denny Hamlin on Sunday, I really, really hope that NASCAR finally realises that it's just gone too far, hasn't it? Now, do I think they'll change? Honestly, I don't know. But what I will say is I feel even more sorry for the people that do, stick around and watch week in, week out for multiple hours a day. Because at the moment, the bigger picture is so bad that even the close-ups are kind of ruined. But it's bizarre in the sense of, a great championship fight in Formula 1. Often people remember, 2012 is a great example of this. Great season overall. Sorry, not 2012, 2010 even, I was going to say. 2010 is a great season. 4 drivers going into the F1 Championship finale with a shot at the title. Crazy. Without a playoff system, even better. But people kind of remember that season really fondly, despite the fact a lot of races weren't that good. NASCAR basically has accidentally done the opposite, where people, even if the racing is really good, people don't remember because the championship format is so bad. And it is just kind of beyond belief. I wanted to make this ramble today, basically to try and get it off my own chest. Thank you all so much as always for watching / listening, and maybe we'll do more of these NASCAR ones in the future.